Hello, thank you for joining us for this edition of Santa Ana College Close-Up. I'm Katie LeCarey. I have some amazing guests here today, but we'll start our show with a peek inside SAC's Digital Media Arts Department.
The Digital Media Arts Department covers everything from graphic design, typography, and web design. Students are exposed to a variety of real-world experiences, including freelancing and a production practicum. Students also have the opportunity through the Digital Media Incubator to be hired as freelance for ad campaigns in both digital and print settings.
Welcome back. Here to talk about SAC's Digital Media Arts Department is Stephanie Clark. Stephanie, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So I guess my first question is, can you tell us a little bit about the Digital Media Arts Department?
So the programs here at SAC are in digital media arts and also graphic design. We have certificates in graphic design and web design. Those are usually catered towards students who are wanting to enter the workforce. And then we also have degrees in digital media arts, which is a really technically heavy degree, kind of again aimed at students who really want to kind of enter the workforce immediately. And we also have a graphic design degree, which tends to be catered more towards students who are considering transferring to a 4-year program. We get a lot of students that end up at Long Beach or Fullerton.
So what kind of jobs can you get just straight out of SAC with this major?
Oh, there's a lot of different jobs that you can, or I guess titles that you can go into after graduating. Graphic designer is a really simple title that most people are very familiar with, and that can kind of exist in a corporate field, in a small business. You can be freelance, and that covers a lot of different things like layout, logo design, a little bit of web design. But graphic designers can kind of move up into different areas. So there's creative directors, which you sort of work your way up after years of experience in that role. And then we also have a new field that's emerging called experience designers. Those people tend to work on what we call experience design, which might qualify as web design in someone's mind, but experience design has more to do with how you interact with a device. So it tends to be more mobile ready. It has to do with how an audience kind of navigates through a screen or a page and looks for buttons and tries to find things. And that's a really big field right now. So experience designers don't need to have a bachelor's degree. And it's an emerging field in Los Angeles where the median income's about $107,000 a year.
So these are high-paying jobs?
These are high-paying jobs, yeah.
Is that just in the experience design industry, or is that how much, your average graphic designer can expect to make?
That's a good question. Entry-level graphic designers tend to earn between $36,000 and $46,000 a year. And those are the designers that tend to work on two-dimensional print output type of things that we're all familiar with, business cards, flyers, posters, the kind of corporate identity marketing materials that we see a lot of graphic designers doing. Experience design is a little more tech heavy in that they work with developers, usually web developers, to develop applications. So that's kind of a high entry level paying job, but it's relatively high in that I think entry positions start at 72.
Okay.
So and then move up to 107, and there's a lot of things in between. It really does kind of depend on what type of software you're using and if the skills are in high demand or highly technical. So I find that people who are working across multiple media tend to make more money than people who are just kind of working on only small print.
And so how is our program? Our program's kind of multimedia centered. How do you integrate these into the program?
So we're working on making it more multimedia minded. We have introduced and a motion graphics with After Effects course, and that is a collaborative effort with the television and video department. So we cross-list it with their program as well. So that's motion graphics, and then we have started to integrate moving media into our entry-level course, which is Art 195, Introduction to Digital Media Arts. It's a long title, but we're starting to introduce some video editing there so that students at least have a little bit of experience working with a timeline, because that is something that is starting to happen in kind of all aspects of marketing and advertising, even on the web. I mean, social media is, a lot of the marketing is usually a moving image. So, so we're doing things like that. And then we have pretty common courses like typography, which I try to include one, what we call kinetic type project, where students animate some of their typeface. And again, just to introduce them to more media software options. And then we've relaunched our web design course. So we're trying to expand, but not too quickly, because you can only expand as large as your program actually is. So that's where we're at right now as far as integrating more media. So motion graphics, web design, and then a little tiny bit of animation. And we hope that in the future we'll be able to expand a little bit further, but that's kind of where we're at right now.
And what's your philosophy behind teaching, like, to take to the classroom? Like, what do you want to instill in your students?
So I really want my students to be independent. I understand that students come in with very little knowledge, perhaps. Maybe I even have students that have never even turned on a Mac computer, or they're not sure how to manage files. And so we cover that in the entry-level course in Art 195, Intro to Digital Media. But I really do kind of encourage all of my students, and through all the projects that they do, to be very independent. And I kind of use that broad term. I want them to feel confident in their creativity and their ability to experiment. And when I say experiment, I want them to both succeed but also fail, so that they are able to learn from any mistakes that they make. Because the most important thing, I think, as an instructor is that I know that I'm only going to have them for maybe 2 years at the most, right? And then they're like little birds. You push them out of the nest, and they need to be able to fly. So I really do kind of have a little bit of a hands-off approach when it comes to their creative projects, and more of a hands-on approach when it comes to teaching them the tools. So I teach them concepts. So how do you describe something that you're working on? Because eventually they'll have clients, and they'll have to be able to explain what it is that they're doing, and why someone should pay them for what they're doing. So you want to be able to articulate that. So I teach them concept. I focus on a lot of different tools, advanced level tools, if I can get to those, so that the students are valuable when they move into the workforce and they have skills that other people don't have. And I encourage them to take risks. So I always tell them that they'll be rewarded for taking risks, and there's a plethora of reasons why, but most of all, I think by taking risks, that's really how you discover new solutions in creative design, because design is all about sort of creating a new voice or a new identity for whoever your client or your audience is.
That's actually really beautiful. You said something kind of interesting about failure. So you like kind of hope that your students will fail while you have them. Is there a way that you kind of coach them through that failure process?
I walk them through it. I walk them through it. I hold their hand a little bit. I really, I would probably argue that one of the techniques I use is found when I offer critique. And when I critique creative work from my students, I always offer it within the framework of, I see where you're going with this. I understand why you're thinking this way. I think you should consider these other options, and here's why. So I try not to, I never frame it as like this is an epic failure. You know, I mean, nobody wants to hear that. None of us want to hear that. And that's not very, it's a little bit self-defeating in a way. You know, students are vulnerable. They're still learning. They might not have some of the tools that they need to get really, really deep with their creative work. So my job is to kind of tell them, like, okay, you're on a path here. Trust your instincts. Be more creative if that's what they're struggling with. They might be struggling with something else. And I'll give them kind of examples that they can look to, or artists they can look to help out. But yeah, I would just say, like, I think where faculty can succeed or faculty can fail is if critique is not constructive and it's more deflating. I think that can be really bad for students. So.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Stephanie.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining me today. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to hear from one of the students in SAC's Digital Media Arts Department.
I chose college because financial issue first, and second because I know there's a good program for music in here.
I chose to come to Santa Ana College because it is a local school and I did not want to drive that far.
I chose here because I was already enrolled into middle college, which is basically I was enrolled in SAC classes and I was doing high school classes at the same time.
The professors, honestly, at universities, it seems like professors never have any time for the individual student, and that's the complete opposite here.
The guidance I have here, because I'm in EOPS, I feel like I'm not by myself, like I'm not confused about anything, they just help me so much with my classes, my ed plan, and it's just like, I have counselors there to support me.
I think my favorite part about Santa Ana College is just the atmosphere and everybody around it.
Hello again. My next guest is Melissa, a current student from SAC's Digital Media Arts Department. Melissa, thank you so much for being here.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So I guess my first question is, how long have you been in the Digital Media Department?
This is my first semester. I'm really just taking the class as a fun class. I actually already graduated with a math degree. This is just a class I'm doing on the side for fun.
And what programs, what have you learned so far in your classes?
So the class is pretty comprehensive. We're learning a lot of Adobe Photoshop, or not Photoshop, but Adobe Cloud products. So we're learning Photoshop, Illustrator, something called InDesign, and Premiere, and I think that's everything we've done so far.
And so what have you learned? Like, have you learned any soft skills related to this? That can be like public speaking. Have you learned, anything like being on time? What have you learned that can translate outside of the classroom?
Well, a lot can definitely translate outside of the classroom, especially because the professor actually works in the industry. And so all of these programs, he's really teaching us how to take what we're learning and translate it into real job material. So that's really useful. And we've filmed a few videos. You were talking about soft skills, and so that kind of helps with that, just kind of being on camera a little bit. So yeah, we've gotten a lot of industry exposure, I would say.
And so I know that you're just taking this class for fun.
Yeah.
What value would someone get out of this class just taking it for fun?
Well, for me, I work a lot with numbers, and so it's very, life can just be very stressful, and so any art class you take for fun is kind of just like a creative outlet to get rid of your stress. So yeah, that's why I take it. I really enjoy it, so yeah.
What is your creative process kind of like? What does it do for you? What does the creative process do?
It kind of forces you to take a step back from the stresses of your life and just focus on being more creative for a little bit, and it really just helps your, I guess, your mental health kind of, to just really be creative and get everything you're thinking kind of out in a creative, productive way, so yeah.
How has your creative process, has it changed how you view your day job working with numbers? How you approach problems, perhaps?
Yeah, definitely. I think when you kind of have a creative outlet, you have the opportunity to approach problems that are sometimes more concrete in a more creative way, which can kind of open up new solutions to problems. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so what has been your favorite project that you've worked on so far in your class?
My favorite project so far is an Adobe Illustrator project we worked on. It was called a polygon portrait, and so I did a picture of my dog for it. We had to draw a bunch of polygons and kind of abstract the picture that we were doing, and we could only use a few colors for it, and so yeah, that turned out really cool. I liked it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And is there any program that you've learned in this class that you could apply elsewhere in your life?
I mean, for fun, yes, but not really for the numbers part of my life. But it's definitely something that I would like to continue doing. So yeah, I'm really happy that I took the class.
Do you think maybe you might do something like this on the side, like in some kind of freelance capacity for fun?
Yeah, definitely, especially because I learned all of this and in such a hands-on kind of way that I can definitely take it forward. And if I ever decide to do a little freelance work on the side, yeah, I feel like I have the tools that I would need to do that.
And have they taught you anything about freelancing, the industry, or do you feel comfortable enough in the industry to go out and get those jobs?
I think, well, I'm obviously not trained enough to go get jobs like that, I don't think, but I think for people who have taken this class and they have more experience in this field, I think they would definitely feel more confident in going out and getting these types of jobs, because our last project is putting together a portfolio of all of our work, and I know that's something that you submit to get jobs in the art field, so that's really useful. Mm-hmm. And because our teacher is in the industry already, he's kind of given us tips on how to get jobs and different websites we can use to freelance stuff, and so yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So have you what what kind of job do you want to possibly get a creative job in the future, or do you just like having your numbers job and doing this on the side?
I do like just having my numbers job and doing this on the side, but kind of like a wild dream I might have is learning animation and possibly doing that in the future, but I think it's more of a on the side thing for me right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do have animation classes here. Are you planning to take any of those?
I'm actually going to be working full-time next semester, so if they offer anything at night, I definitely would look into that for sure, but it's kind of tricky with my schedule. But yeah, if the classes work with my schedule, I would definitely want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are you going to continue designing just into the future? How did you get into design?
Well, I've been kind of artistic my whole life. When I was little, I really enjoyed art. I learned how to oil paint in second grade or something like that, and I've done art all through high school, and then college is really when I switched into the STEM field, and so I had to give up that art side of me, and so it's just nice to get back to that, and so yeah, I was really just looking to get back into the art creative side of me because I really missed that part of my life, so that's why I'm kind of in design now.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Melissa.
Yeah, of course.
And and that's all we have today. Thank you so much for joining me, and be sure to check back later for our next edition of SAC Close Up.